Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, and I am despondent. You're going to find out why in this episode of JJ Meets World. Maybe you've got some advice for me, and I'd like to thank our newest subscriber, Curly. He's gone back and listened to all previous episodes already. He must have put it in 10 times speed, so welcome, Curly, and anyone else who's discovering JJ Meets World for the first time ever. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Yeehaw. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Something weird happened to me yesterday, Tucker. I was at the mall, and a guy kept looking at me, and he kind of followed me. Like, I was in the JCPenney Husky department, and then I moved out to the Orange Julius, where I don't like to purchase anything. I just like to see what the prices are right now for an Orange Julius and how much it is to add a banana. And
was he wearing like a security outfit?
No. In fact, he was wearing, gosh, I mean, I wouldn't describe it as a trench coat, but it was trench coat adjacent. And he had a baseball cap on, and it became very clear that he was looking at me, like he was eyeing me up. And so finally I decided, listen, I got to get out of here. So I head towards Best Buy, which is now in the mall, of course, but I take a hard left at Crave, being like, ha, 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 you'll never find me now. And just as I get outside, he goes, JJ Gordon?
Uh-oh.
And I said, yeah. And he goes, I have something for you. Uh-oh. And I immediately was like, no, this is going to be the worst. What is going to happen to me? And I'm like, all I've done is I've removed myself from the public eye. You know, I have gone down a hallway that hardly anyone ever uses. So he hands me this manila envelope. And
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And he asks me to sign. And so I do. And he tells me that I have been served. And so I open this thing. And so here's what you need to know. So, my dad passed away in 2003, okay? And at the time, he had put together, because my dad knew he was dying for a while, he had put together essentially a trust for me for the future. And so this is the document that, had this stuff in it. And I called a phone number that was listed in it, and so it was. So what it is when my dad was younger and when he was going to college, he went to college because his dad said, that's what you got to do. You got to go to college. And my dad agreed that he wanted to go to college, but deep down, he didn't want to be a postmaster like his dad was, or a carpenter, or a farmer. My dad loved the idea of living a cowboy lifestyle. That was his dream, I think, was to be a cowboy. And so this trust that he put together is the deed to a dude ranch outside of Laramie, Wyoming. And I have to now make the decision if I want to go, or I can sell it. That's the thing, is so there's a letter inside, and it's written on that old onion style paper. And wow. Yeah, it's from my dad. And it's very short. Would you like me to read it to you? It's very short.
Yeah, go for it.
It goes, JJ, my time is near. Don't waste your life like I did. Be a cowboy.
Isn't that the opening to Stardew Valley?
I've never. Is that some kind of television show?
No, I it's a word I've heard before. But I'm sorry, keep going. So he wanted to be a cowboy, and he left you this parchment.
Yep. So the number I called actually goes down to, so my dad had left operating like cost expenses and had put it in the hands of a guy named Curly. And so Curly's been running this thing for the last, 22 years. And he said like, oh, I was expecting to get a call from you. And I said, well, it was supposed to be delivered after 20 years. And he goes, unfortunately, there were some issues with how the trust was set up and then things that were changed during the original Trump administration. And he goes, so we just had to get those taken care of. And now that they are, he goes, you're the owner of this ranch. And I said, okay, well, can you continue to work there and stay there? And he goes, I'll stay here my whole life, but I got to tell you, there's 7 people whose livelihood depends on you now making decisions. And I said, well, what do you even ranch out there? Is it cows and pigs? And he said, no, what they do is they raise big game. And then like this dude ranch leads onto like a huge amount of space, like into the Rocky Mountains outside of Laramie. And then people can apply and come and hunt the big game. So like one year they'll raise a bunch of bighorn sheep, and then the next year they'll raise like elk, but these elk are specific that they've got these big craggly antlers and stuff like that. And these are things I know nothing about, right?
Definitely, you know nothing about these things.
You've watched some Yellowstone.
I've actually never watched any Yellowstone. So now I feel like I'm way behind.
You just got to watch a couple scenes on YouTube. That's really all I've done. I literally know the full story of Yellowstone. I've never watched a full episode.
Oh, really?
I've just watched scenes on YouTube.
I actually found out today that you and I know somebody who is on like the last episode of Yellowstone.
Really?
Yeah, doing background acting.
Interesting.
In it. So I now have to make this decision, and the dude ranch is called the El Gordo, and which means the fat one in Spanish. But Gordo was my dad's nickname. And I guess my dad just, like when he found out he was sick, he started making these plans, and this is what he wants for me. My sister's really mad because she's not included at all in anything. And
well, she knows even less than you do.
Actually, I would actually beg to differ. I think Chrissy probably went to WeFest as a consumer more, so maybe she knows, because the Sioux Pass Ranch used to be an old dude ranch.
But you have played through both Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Actually, you know what? That is incredibly true. I wonder if some of those skills, because there's at the end of Red Dead Redemption, after you've finished like the bulk of the game and you've defeated the villain, you still have to spend like 4 hours going back and like teaching your son how to herd cattle, and you hang out with a guy named Uncle.
Yep. It's just like if you play the Oregon Trail enough times, you can actually do the Oregon Trail, the actual one, in a box cart, and you'd be able to do it.
Do you cock the wagon, ford the river, or
you want to
make the guide?
You make sure you marry a banker right away.
Yeah, definitely.
So here's a couple of thoughts that popped into my head of my advice to you.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking for, because
venture.
I'm lost. I'm lost.
So definitely the first 2 things you need to do are fire Curly, get that guy out of there. You don't need someone who's been there for 20 years and knows everything and how to run it. He's dead weight. Get rid of him.
Okay.
And then consider raising elephants for hunting. If we're going big game, you should go big game all the way. No one out there that I'm aware of in the upper Midwest, or you said this is up by the Rockies?
Yeah, this is in Laramie, Wyoming.
No one out there is raising elephants for big game. You would be able to absolutely corner that market. And then part number 3, whales.
Like you want like inland whales?
Grow whales. Yeah.
Okay.
And then have them get hunted, because that's an endangered species, right? But it's not as endangered if you've got your own supply of them that you're just replenishing.
Tucker, I feel like you're not taking this seriously. Like you're making some kind of a joke out of this inheritance I've received more than 20 years after my father's death. And I understand it can be a lot to swallow, but let's be honest here. Let's be honest about the logistics here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No one's ever going to give me an elephant breeding license. Not in this country.
They don't have it yet, and that's why you're the one who you would be the reason why they make the law in the first place, right? Because there is no law governing whether or not you can raise elephants for sport near the Rocky Mountains. I already checked on this. I went online. I use an AI lawyer now for all my lawyer needs, and the AI lawyer says that it's an open area right now. It's unregulated. Two, you got to cut costs right away. That's why you get rid of Curly. I mean, sure, he's got experience and he depends on the land and everyone loves him and he knows how to run it and he was your dad's best friend and you saved him in the war. But that's a mouth to feed, right? And you need to go in there. You need to go hardcore mode like Elon Musk and Twitter. You need to go in and just tear it down so that you can rebuild it. And then you need to distinguish yourself in the marketplace. And so you should go big or go home. I mean, what are we really talking about here? If we're going to go through raising animals that are you can't get around here for wealthy hunters, maybe you see if there's an extinct species you can bring back and then have them kill that.
See, I was thinking of a Jurassic Park-like situation like that. My big thing here, Tucker, is even though I only spoke to him for about 10 minutes, but we texted a lot last night. I feel like there's potential that Curly might be my half brother.
Interesting. On your father's side or your mother's side?
No, on my mother's side, which makes it even weirder.
God, do you think she knew?
I don't know. If she did, I mean, she kept it under wraps. And like, I have read a lot of journals and documents that my mom left behind, and there's no national treasure like clues indicating that she did. But again, I never expected this to begin with. So
hold on,
maybe I'm being had.
So when you're looking at did she have any pieces of rolled parchment that might look like a layout anywhere in there?
No, but you know what she did have? A cryptic.
Okay. What it sounds like you haven't done yet is you haven't really quickly, with one arm, brushed all of the contents that are on a desk off of the desk and then spread this thing out on top of it. I think you need to do it like that before it becomes really obvious where the clues are hidden inside of the script.
I like that. My mom's weird obsession with Murder, She Wrote. Mm-hmm. I think is kind of paying off now because I have found journal after journal after journal. I mean, we're talking about thousands of pages of her writing and deconstructing every episode. You know how they've got those podcasts that are where the people who are in the show, like the Office ladies, break down each episode of The Office.
Yeah.
My mom was doing that, but in a paper version when this series originally ran.
And that's really fascinating that she did all this writing because you always told me that she was illiterate.
Yeah. Oh, this is all through pictographs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is probably why it's thousands and thousands of pages because she can't put as much on there, but it's clear as day.
Yeah. Like she's channeling ancient Sumerian or something.
Yeah.
So if you were getting served, I've always thought that means someone is suing you. Is someone suing you?
No, it's when you're served, it can be any type of legal document.
Okay.
But it has to be so I assume this person was an off-duty cop. And so when they serve you that way, if I say, "Oh, I never heard about this thing. I didn't know it," they'd be like, "Oh, well, this is the guy who said he handed you the paperwork, whether you read it or not. This paperwork actually did find it into your hands."
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
and then he did and here's the thing. So then he took off that coat and he had to go work at Crave because he was a line cook.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was some kind of elaborate joke. You've been served. But I'm like, you're not a part of the wait staff. You're only a line cook.
Well, okay. So now you've got a ranch. I assume you'll have to
dude ranch.
You'll have to navigate the inheritance tax in some way.
Oh, when it comes to ranches and turning from one generation to the next, there's no inheritance tax whatsoever.
Oh, really?
The only tax implication would be on the back of this onion paper with the thing my dad gave me. There is what I would consider a crude map.
Okay.
And so if there's anything buried there, if I try and deposit whatever the gains are, that's when the government would come after me. But I am pretty sure, my dad was not a guy who wanted to put a bunch of money into cash. I'm betting that if I went there, I would find, pieces of classic automobiles that might be worth something to someone that I could sell on Craigslist. Or maybe, maybe the Louis L'Amour's bones.
Uh-huh.
Something that has a very specific person that they go to.
Something rare like that.
Yeah.
Have you and Jill talked this over? I mean, do you guys think you're going to move?
That's the other thing is I can't bring anyone else with me.
you have to cut all ties.
Yeah, I mean, they don't say like I can't ever talk to them again, but this is an adventure for me and me alone. It's not meant for me to like share the burden with other people.
Right.
And so if I go, I don't want a long-term relationship. I've told her that for years. And so I'm afraid that I would have to like cut her to the wind, and it would just be me. Now, that's the other thing about this dude ranch, right? There is a lot of people out there who don't understand the fact that I have a deep connection to the pharaohs of Egypt. And I'm constantly proposed to by other women, but I'm like, listen, I'm taken. Even though I'm not wearing a ring, I'm taken. And so I worry that the second that I give up my marriage, there may be a moment where all of these people who want to become, part of that dynasty come here. So I don't know. I mean, and that goes into the equation too. Not leaving Jill, just opening myself up for, scrutiny from single women.
Right.
Or women who are willing to leave their husbands for me, because the last thing I want to do is, hurt my bros.
Yeah. I was really surprised when you showed me your 23andMe results, and it was like almost 85% Egyptian.
Right. I know. Apparently, if you look at artist renderings of Ramses II, very, very similar to me. Apparently, we have the same jowl and everything. And that's probably why I've always wanted to vacation in Egypt.
Yeah. And you've always been attracted to triangle structures.
You're absolutely correct. That's why I only like looking at bridges from like the water perspective.
Oh my God. And that totally explains why on your 22nd birthday, like we lost you for that hour, and then you came out of the bathroom and you had used the toilet paper and completely wrapped your entire body with it. We thought you were just being silly, but no, you were expressing yourself to your ancestors.
Yeah, exactly. Did you like that?
That was, it puts a whole new context to it.
Did you know that I also pooped?
Yeah, we all knew that, JJ.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you knew.
So what are the next steps? I mean, you're going to have to make a brand for your Dude Ranch. Are you just going to use the Linebenders logo?
I was thinking like that, but make it look like the instead of the L like being like a cord, it's gonna look a little bit more like what's that stuff that they put on fences?
Barbed wire.
Barbed wire, that's the one. I'll make it look like Barbara Wire.
Yeah. You should add some flame to it, like a Guy Fieri logo.
Oh, I like that idea.
Because not only is the logo hot, you have to heat it up to burn it into the elephant's hide.
Right. I was going to say, like, no matter what it is, it's got to look good as a brand. And so that'll be, part of the other thing. Here's the other thing, too. So, like, there are a few stipulations. Obviously, like, I have to go and do it myself. There are no motorized vehicles allowed. So I would have to leave my car here and then ride a horse to Laramie.
Okay.
So I don't want to do that while it's winter.
No. You'll. Do you have to assume control of it immediately? Like, what happens if you just let it sit for a year or two?
Well, that's the thing. And so Curly told me that he's happy to run it for as long as I'd want, but he wants to be paid now.
Oh.
Now that I know about him, he wants to be given a living wage.
How is he surviving beforehand? I mean, your dad's been gone for a good long while. Has he just been just chilling?
Every year he gets to take 2 of the wild game that live and turn them into clothing, into sometimes he would carve the bones into intricate little toys and tchotchkes that he could sell at marketplaces, and of course whatever meat he could get off of it as well.
Well, that's a great deal. I don't know what's changed then. Like why would he need anything different?
Well, because apparently he just found out about the internet.
Yeah. Another reason to get rid of Curly.
Think so?
Yeah, he wants to be paid, right? Like, that's a great deal. I would take that deal if I were offered it from you right now. Like, I would live on the land, and I wouldn't require any money, and I would just, eat what I kill with my bare hands and live in a tent, and it would be great. Like, that is Have you heard that, like, apparently the kids these days are saying there's like a meme where they want to return to monkey? Have you heard of this?
No, I've never returned a monkey.
Return to monkey. My brother told me this yesterday when our family was hanging out. Apparently, return to monkey is like, you know what? I don't want all of the stresses and trappings of modern day human life where I have to put on a tie and pay bills and I've got a boss and stuff. I'd rather just go back to my ancestors, the monkeys, and live the way they do, you know, in a tree, naked, eating whatever I can find, just being a monkey in the jungle. And that's kind of what I think I would be doing if I took over Curly's position. I'd be willing to change my name to Curly if we need a little more consistency for anyone else that might have to adapt to the shock. But, you know, if you let me do that, and if I can maybe run a herd of zebras through there that are mine, I think we can work something out.
Do you want to hear the thing that really is off-putting to me is, so yesterday when I got off the phone with Curly and we started texting, Curly started like sending photos because he said, just if you want to know what I look like. So that I wouldn't be, I guess, distressed. The first time that I see him in person. And so here's the thing. He is the spitting image of John Goodman. Like, looks exactly like, at first I thought, am I getting punked here? Is this actually John Goodman? And the thing is like, so then we FaceTimed for like 5 minutes while we were both eating toast this morning.
It's specific.
And I asked him why his name was Curly. And thinking like, oh, you know, did you have really curly hair as a baby, or maybe you were bald as a baby and that's what it was. And he's told me, no, Curly is spelled with a Q. And so I switched that in my phone right away and I renamed it. And he told me that he was actually named after the piece that when you put a bathtub in, you have to put this piece that connects the drain to the little knob that makes it go up and down. And that's called a curlet. And so he's named after that. And I said, well, that's interesting. Your parents must have been plumbers. And this is what why I think like maybe he's a half brother, right? And he said, well, no, my father wasn't actually even alive when I was born. And I said, Curly, I'm sorry to hear that. And he goes, no, it's all right. He said, my father was a ghost. A ghost. And I said, well, what about your mom? And he goes, oh, your mom. So that's what gives me the sneaking suspicion that maybe he's my half brother.
Right. So your mother was bedded by a ghost. Was it in a dream sequence?
Well, she always had to step out of the room when we were watching Ghostbusters, and that sequence happened where Ray is in the museum. And she had a lot of insight. She's like, you know, this is actually part of a bigger scene that got cut, and then they just added it to the montage. That's why you can see the velvet ropes. This is inside of a museum, and so she had a lot of insight, but she'd always leave the room and yell from the other part of the room.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned Ghostbusters, because I was having a conversation just the other day with my coworker, Neil. Neil is early 20s, 23, 24. Great guy, really talented. Just got engaged. So if he's listening, Neil, congratulations. Neil has never seen Ghostbusters. The first Ghostbuster. He hasn't seen any Ghostbuster, especially not the first one. And that got me to thinking of, wait, what generation are we on right now? I was under the impression that Gen Z was like the current, like, in group. Like that was the current, like, they're the taste makers. They're the ones who understand, who know more about our popular culture than anyone else might, because they're so voracious, blah, blah, blah. But now I heard there's this thing called Gen Alpha. Is that what fucking generation are we on right now, JJ? I'm trying to figure out where in the time stream we are, because to me, if you not only if you haven't seen Ghostbusters, but you don't know what the Ghostbusters are, we're trending in the wrong direction as a society.
Gen Alpha is any person who is born who has grandparents who watched the show Elf during its original airing.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yeah.
Damn it.
But no, I get lost with the generations, and then people are like, well, you guys are, you're part of this generation. I'm like, I don't think that fits. I don't think that's where the timeline is. And I certainly don't, we use the term boomer for anyone that we want to put down for not understanding technology or being set in their ways. But I'm like, I've got friends who would be considered boomers if that is the thing. Now, if they were part of the baby boom, they are
literally boomers.
They are literally boomers. And so that is part of it. Now, there's also the greatest generation. There's the Pepsi generation. There's a lot. I mean, it's pretty intricate. And whoever is making these decisions, I think that it's not an elected. Someone is there, and whoever is the loudest with yelling, if you were born between 1998 and 1999, you are the Party of Five generation. And as long as they yell the loudest, that's what you become, the Party of Five generation.
It's not scientifically rigorous. That's true. What is the makeup then at your job? Because the Ghostbusters comment kind of sent me into a spiral, and I realized that I'm only. So I'd say my job has probably 25 people working at it, 30 people working at it total. I think I might be one of 2 or 3 millennials, maybe. Everyone else is either Gen X or Gen Z. And then
really?
Yeah. Everyone else is either Gen X or Gen Z for sure. Even my boss, I don't think he's a boomer. I think he's probably one of the older Gen Xers, maybe, or maybe on that kind of transition space. Like you and I are, we're millennials, but we're also zennials because we're sort of the transition phase between generations. So we have some of their attributes, but we have a different set all of our own. Yeah, and it's kind of weird to be in like this middle ground space. Like I'm every day I'm confronted with people who are at the beginnings of their careers and people who are inching closer to the ends of their careers, and I'm like right in the middle of it. It's wild. Where are you at your place?
So I mean, I think there's like 110 people who work at my place, and so we're kind of all over the place. I would say we probably lean heavier into older, like closer to retiring, not quite boomers, like people who were born in the 60s and 70s, I think is probably the majority of the makeup. Now, that being said, they're also just we've got our one guy, who went to high school in the 90s, and we've got the one lady who, graduated in 2010 from high school. And so we're all over the mark on it. But what I think is unique about us is because we are in an industry that is seen as kind of an older industry in radio, we all appear older than we actually are. And so that's why I like to be young and full of life.
Radio's got to be 100 years old?
It's older than that, I think, actually.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. And so, printed would be the only thing that's older than what we are, technically.
Yeah, that's true.
When you come to, mainstream media.
Yeah. So I was going to say stone etchings probably are older. But
do you want to know the one thing I do find most interesting about radio is that radio is free. So you don't have to pay to get it. All you need is a device for it. And this device is built into, almost every vehicle that's out there, including, I found this out, Army tanks are built with an AM/FM radio inside of it.
Yeah, I believe it.
So we're included in that. And then people have consumed radio just in so many other ways. And then the baby brother to radio is things like Spotify and streaming content, like that digital side of being able to listen to what you want when you want it.
Yeah.
But, and it's a big but, our competitors in places like TV and certainly in print, like print had to go behind a paywall
Yep.
to sustain itself. And I don't think it's doing as well as it wanted to do. And, it waited too long. And so it's like, okay, so what's radio's next thing? Well, we'll never go behind a paywall because we just use the airwaves to, to send our signal out. But even like TV, it's to the point of where like watching local news is more difficult than it's ever been before. Like if you want to watch, like at your house right now, if you wanted to watch it, you would have to watch their live stream, which means that you have to have an internet connection. You need to have some kind of a streaming device. And that's not even a guarantee because sometimes they're like, oh, sorry, you're not within Midco. You can't watch us. Bye. Sorry.
I wonder how long it would be before like the traditional terrestrial radio receivers are just phased out of cars entirely because people aren't using them. They're not using, I don't know how long until then, because I would assume as we become more connected that it becomes something where most people like myself listen to or will listen to streaming audio through like their phone device that just goes into the car. So they're receiving a signal, but it's not like over the airwaves, right? And it's more curated. And I wonder if at some point manufacturers go, yeah, we're just not going to spend the money to put in these AM FM receivers anymore because they've fallen out of use.
That is actually going on right now. And I believe it was like Chevy, like one of the major car companies had said, hey, listen, we're going to phase out the radio in this. And excuse me. There was legislation at a federal level saying you need to include this in there. And this is the reason why. It is for emergency broadcasting.
Okay.
And so they said, like, if there's a tornado coming, like they pop on and they can, take over. Now, unfortunately, you have to be listening to the radio at the time. But if you hear of something, you can swap over. So like one of the biggest tune-ins that you're going to get on radio is during a weather storm, a natural disaster, or a public, like a public safety issue. So, for example, the day of the police shooting in July of 2023, we, our listenership spiked because everyone wanted the information and they wanted to consume it as fast as possible. And even though there were posts being put up by like places like the Fargo Police Department on Facebook, people don't trust that anymore, right? So they want to hear this. And we were able to do, like, in real time, we were able to talk to a woman who had been hit by a stray bullet through her car. Like before she was like, yeah, I haven't even gone to the police station yet. Damn. And so she explained what her thing was and about how this guy named Norm pulled her out of her car and put her in his truck and got her to safety, like a complete and total stranger. And so there's something about that being live that is different now. So it's interesting you bring that up because that is a discussion of people being like, well, no one consumes this the way they want. And if they still want to listen to KFGO, they'll just stream via KFGO's app.
Sure.
So, and then what's double interesting is, so for us, we are the home of the Twins and the Vikings and a lot of other professional sports, but we don't have the streaming rights to that. That is something separate that they do. So like when we have a Twins game, our app has a blackout. So there's nothing on our app at the time when that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are you maybe you should start a new radio station on your dude ranch.
You know what? I was like KDDE, K Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you should use the Linebenders logo. I think this is a good opportunity for you to just really start fresh. Like the Double J, right? Like that sounds like a ranch name, doesn't it? The Double J?
There's already about 50 Double J ranches out there. I Googled it right away.
Okay.
Now there is no Tucker's Butt Valley. So I was thinking about that.
It's got to have a lot of trees on it.
TBV. And the thing is that we make the ranch itself look like it's your crotch.
You should make ranch on the ranch, JJ.
I thought about that too, but I'd rather make Pepperidge Farm cookies. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. Bad news, Tucker. The ranch burned down, and so now it's just a plot of land and a bunch of loose tigers.